So what about this particular storm stuck out to you to make you realize you had to get out and storm chase that night?
April 27th, 2014. It was a day leading up to it, 4 and 5 days out, looked like it was going to be a really dangerous day. And as we got to day 3, day 2, day 1, it was just built different. It was a day, it was a setup that just looked different. It's high end, probably going to include the threat of a significant tornado, and unfortunately, that came true with the big tornado that we had. Going into April 27th, the day of, going into April 27th on the day of, there were a couple of questions as to if the atmosphere would destabilize, and we had morning rain on the 27th. It cleared out in time, we warmed up, and unfortunately everything came together for a tragic event.
Okay. So like I said, so you were still in school. You weren't even out of school yet.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about your experience chasing that night and kind of what you witnessed.
So we saw the storm develop. It developed in Garland County near Hot Springs Village. It wasn't tornado warned at that point, but it had the look of a storm that was going to be a problem down the road. And so the group I was chasing with, we went to Mayflower because we figured, having experienced what occurred 3 years earlier, that storm tracked from Hot Springs Village to Valonia, we figured let's go on I-40 close to Mayflower. That storm's probably going to cross through there, and we'll see what happens. Of course, as the storm's approaching western Pulaski County, it puts a big tornado down, and we basically just waited on it from there.
Cool. So what was going through your mind when you first got into Mayflower and you saw the damage that had happened?
Yeah, I'll start with where we were at on I-40. The tornado, at least looking at it on radar, it appeared to me that it was coming right for us. And so a few minutes before we were able to see it, I was kind of concerned that we were going to have to go backwards on I-40 right there just north of the Morgan Maumelle exit. As we saw the tornado, it was moving north of us, and all we could see was just darkness. It was just dark. And every so often, through a flash of lightning or in a power flash, you could tell where this massive tornado was. I knew it was a tornado, had no idea the amount of devastation it was doing at that moment until we got in our car after the tornado had passed and zoomed up I-40. And the first thing we see is a billboard that's kind of been ripped off. And the next thing we see is an RV that's just unrecognizable. And the next thing we see after that is just total devastation right there on I-40 at Mayflower.
Perfect. Did you notice anything different because you guys went from Mayflower to Valonia, right? Kind of, sort of.
It was tough. It was tough. Yeah.
So as you kind of noticed all the damage, did you guys notice anything different between, obviously, like West Pulaski County, Mayflower, Valonia, anything like that?
Yeah, the damage along the path. I mean, the tornado stayed really strong along its life cycle, which is pretty rare. Sometimes a big tornado will have one specific point where it's really bad and then do weaker damage along its path. This tornado almost immediately started doing extreme damage. The tree blowdowns in western Pulaski County are right up there with the most significant tornadoes. You had houses swept off their foundation, not only in western Pulaski County, but also in Mayflower and also in Valonia. It's like the entire track of the tornado had that higher end damage, which was extremely unfortunate.
Perfect. Just shot a little bit. Okay.
And I can talk a little bit more about the damage at Mayflower specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I ask you. No, I don't. So yeah, if you want to talk about the damage a little bit more.
Yeah. So we get to Mayflower. We're one of the first ones there. There's a lot of other storm chasers in the area. There's people who obviously were on I-40. We get out of our cars and we're walking around looking for people. There were people trapped in cars. There were a couple people who survived in the basement of a structure just off I-40. The smell is one thing I'll never forget. It smelled like fresh cut grass, fresh cut vegetation. There's trees everywhere. Vegetation's been stripped up along the path of the tornado. And a lot of the cars parked nearby were unrecognizable and thrown long distances. And it's some of the worst tornado damage I've ever seen, and I've been chasing for over 10 years.
So not only did you storm chase, but you also, once you got there and kind of saw the damage, you guys got out and were checking on people.
Yeah, we got out and we checked on people, and we did our best to just. A couple of the people we helped were not hurt at all. There was another couple of people that were in a car, and all we could do for them was just help them stay where they were at until paramedics could get there.
Perfect. So these kind of storms, once considered to be once in a lifetime, the strength, the intensity, and even though Arkansas is no stranger to spring tornadoes, what specifically made this one stand out?
I would say this is a generational tornado. It's the peak, I'll say this again. I would say the Mayflower-Valonia tornado of 2014 is a generational tornado. It is the worst of the worst that this state can deliver as far as tornado strength goes. I would put tornadoes like Arkadelphia, March 1st, 1997 in that class. They're extremely rare. They happen maybe once a decade. You just don't see tornadoes of this strength very often. A lot of them are very weak. And for us in central Arkansas, it was the strongest tornado since that day, March 1st, 1997, when Little Rock had an F4 tornado. So hopefully it's a very, very long time before we have to experience anything like that again, because this was as close to an F5 as you can get.
Perfect. In your opinion, why are we tending to see stronger, more violent storms now on a kind of a more regular basis? I mean, when you think about Joplin and stuff like that,
I don't really think we're seeing more of them. We haven't in the last decade.
Okay.
I mean, 2010, 11, 12, 13 had huge days. And then after that, it really dropped off. And we haven't had an F5 in the United States since 2013. So it's been a long time.
Okay.
And Oklahoma hasn't had an F4 tornado since 2016. So you have these, it comes in waves. 1974, you have the super outbreak. The 90s had a really slow period for tornadoes. The late 90s and early 2000s, very busy. And then here in Arkansas, the late 2010s, 2010, 2011, and then 2014, had some huge tornado events here. And then it got really slow for several years. 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, very slow for tornadoes in this state for the most part, especially the strong ones. We went from 2014 EF4 all the way to 2021 without experiencing another tornado of that strength.
Perfect. Okay, so kind of circling back, have you been back out to the Mayflower-Valonia areas in the last 10 years to see how the communities have rebuilt?
Yes. I drive past Mayflower every day. I've been through Valonia. I've been in the school that was destroyed, and it's been rebuilt. But if you look closely, you can still see the scars that remain. Trees that are a little bit mangled, maybe a gap where trees should be, or a section of homes or a section of buildings in Saltillo where everything's fairly new, built recently within the last 10 years. You can still tell that something terrible happened 10 years ago.
Cool. Does anything seem to stick out to you, maybe about the resilience of the people that just kind of picked up and rebuilt in the same place?
Yeah, I was really impressed by the entire response in the days after, the amount of donations that poured in, and the amount of people that showed up to clear roads, clear houses, and just do what they could. And a lot of those homes, they did rebuild. And I think that's really awesome because nothing can break the spirit of those people here in Arkansas.
Perfect. That's it. That's all I have.
Awesome.